Bon,
Yeah.
voilà. Bonjour les amis. Hello, dear friends. I'm sorry we're a little late, but we are here right now. So, Thomas, are you here?
Ah oui, oui, c'est bon, ça marche.
C'est bon?
Yes,
Alors,
I'm here. Right.
we'll switch from French to English.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's
So,
start it again.
where are you? Which?
I'm in Arcenray, a little town, a little village in the island of Ré, Île de Ré.
Where is
Île
it?
de Ré, as the Americans say. Île de
El
Ré.
de Rey. So it's
Yeah.
very sexy. So, how is it? Have you been there the whole confinement time?
Yes, for the past 2 months exactly. Yes, it's been pretty special to spend all the spring here. It's great. I love it.
Great. So let me introduce you a little bit first. I'm sure many of the people who are watching they know you already, but just to pretend that I'm doing a real job as
They might not.
as an interviewer. So your name is Thomas Enhco. That is the first step. You started very early to play both violin and piano, but violin was first when you were 3 years old. Then you switched, no, not you switched, you added piano at the age of 6, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I really wanted to play the piano actually.
Yeah. You played, I want you to tell us a little bit about your first experience on a big concert festival in Juan-les-Pins when you were only 9. That's very early, very special. Tell us what.
Yes, so my at that time stepfather Didier Lockwood, so great French jazz violin player, was playing there, and he had invited me to play with him a few tunes with his group, with Martial Solal and many other great musicians. And it was funny because he presented this to me as a sort of reward for the good work that I had been doing on my instruments, and he knew that I really liked to play for an audience, and he had told me, hey, you know what? In a few weeks, I'm going to play at this very big festival. It's beautiful, and I will invite you on stage with me because you have been a good boy, basically. You know? And I thought it was a joke, and in fact it was not, and it was my first experience in front of like 4,000 people. You know.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive.
I was so scared, so scared. I was 9. I had little round glasses, and I had an electric violin that was blue. I still have it. It was blue, and I was very proud of my blue violin.
Of course. Then a couple years later, when you were 15, you did your first recording with your trio.
Yes.
And starting in 2008. So how old were you in 2008? You were.
How old was I? In 2008, I was 19. I was.
Yeah, so I should have researched that, sorry. But anyway, very early you started to go often touring in Japan. A lot of
Just like you, yeah.
Yeah, but tell me, how did that happen? Because jazz is such a special thing for the audience in Germany. In Japan.
In Japan. Yes, yes. So, well, first, the Japanese people are, as you know, incredible music lovers, and they have a very big respect for music and musicians, and especially when it comes to classical music and jazz. And I think from jazz, it must date back from like the 1940s and the war, actually, because there were many American soldiers and, you know, bases. That's also how most of American jazz came to France also.
I knew about France, but I didn't know it was the same there, but it makes sense.
Yes, and there are since then there have been a lot of jazz lovers in Japan, and they really respect this music, and there are also many great Japanese jazz players and producers and record labels and venues, and it's really incredible in Japan how in almost every town, little or big, there are at least one or a few jazz clubs. Much more than what we have in France.
Yeah,
It's like
I noticed
it's like New York, but everywhere, you know, like there are, I don't know, just in Tokyo. Well, Tokyo is a huge city, but there are maybe 50 different jazz clubs, you know.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And in very rural, small towns in some remote areas, there are some incredible jazz clubs, which are often, it's funny, they are often owned by women.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Do you know
and we
why?
call them Mama something, like Mama Kyoko, Mama Yoko, etc. And most of the time they have at least a decent baby grand piano, which is not often the case in small jazz clubs, and a good sound system and good lights and everything. And it's like they really take care of, you know, the quality of the concerts and how they welcome the musicians and the audiences. And some are big and some are only for, like, in last February I was touring in Japan, so I had a bunch of classical and jazz concerts, and I had this concert that I wanted to do in Kyoto in a very tiny spot, uh, which has only 20 or 25 seats. So it's more like a beautiful bar where they have an incredible collection of jazz records, vinyls, like several thousand, like maybe 10,000 vinyls, and an
That's huge.
incredible sound system and a piano. And once in a while, they will welcome a pianist and they will play a concert, you know. And the piano is signed by like Chick Corea and, you know, pianists like that. It's incredible.
So a lot in Japan, and a couple of years later, in 2012, you moved to New York.
Yes,
So tell
for a
us a
couple of years.
little bit about your experience in the States.
Well, it was intense and it was short too. So I decided to move there, not alone, with my ex-girlfriend. So actually there was also one trigger which was also related to Japan, because my Japanese producer, who has since passed away, so he was the one who helped me put a foot in Japan and tour every year there. So he, after a few tours and recordings that we made over there, he wanted me to record something for him in New York with two jazz legends. So on the bass, it was John Patitucci, who is known, I mean, as an incredible jazz bass player, but also as a sideman for, you know, Chick Corea, Wayne Shorter, people like that. And on the drums, it was Jack DeJohnette, who was in Miles Davis's group, and has been the drummer of Keith Jarrett for 35 or more years. And so for me, it was a dream come true. Like, actually, my first experience in New York as a musician was recording with these two legends that I had been listening to, you know, for all my life, in the legendary Avatar Studios in
Not bad. Not bad.
yeah. So that was the first thing, January 2012, and I spent a week there, and then we found an apartment, and we moved there from Paris one or 2 months later, and then I started to, you know, experience what the life for a jazz musician in New York could be like. It was, of course, not playing all at once with guys like that, you know, but it was great. So it was doing a lot of sessions, like playing at people's places and also at my place, riding my bicycle super fast in the city, from Harlem to Brooklyn every day, to go and play with some guys. And my first gigs, it was really like the gigs in these little jazz clubs that are, you know, sometimes like small and kind of like not, they don't look like super fancy, but actually they are
But
the
there are.
place where it happens and
Yeah.
where the music happens, and it's great. I really loved it. Like places like the 55 Bar or Small Jazz Club or
Yeah, that you know, I lived a couple of years in New York, and those are the place that I really love to go, because they don't look good and nobody cares. It's just the music is happening, and it's just fantastic.
yeah, and the level is so high for jazz.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
absolutely.
So I would spend, you know, a few weeks and then go back to Europe for a few weeks because I had some concerts, and then go back. And I did this sort of commute between Paris and New York for 2.5 years. And then in 2014, I decided to move back to Paris and settle back in Paris, which made more sense for me because all my base was there and my family, and it was better for me to be based in Paris and go to New York when I needed to. But I miss it sometimes.
But it's funny because what you describe is exactly my own experience. I lived in New York for 3 years, and I was doing that kind of commute thing. And after 2.5 years, I realized that it was a better idea to have my base where I belong here in Paris and do take a plane when I needed to go and see families or just play in New York.
Also, we're so lucky with Paris. It's not a bad place to live.
Yeah. And that was the time when we still had concerts to play, which brings me to the topic of our live today. I am curious to know about this confinement experience. So tell me, is there something that changed in your relationship to the instrument or to music? Did you play the whole time? Did you stop? Did you take time off? Did you put your instrument kind of away? Or did you practice like crazy? Did you shut down music? Or what happened? Tell me, how did this confinement interfere with your relationship with your instrument?
Well, I think maybe like most of my fellow musicians friends, I went through different phases.
Yeah, of course.
It's funny because 2 months is really short when we think about like just what is 2 months. It's nothing. But at the same time, it made room for a lot of different things for me. So first, maybe the first week, I kind of completely let go. It was like, I was super shocked like everybody, and also hoping that within 2 weeks I would be able to go back to concerts. And I was supposed to be like now in the States actually for my first actual tour in the States and things like that. So I thought, okay, well, it's just like very temporary. We went to the seaside and let's just drop the pressure for some time. And then, so this was a very short phase, but I was still playing, but just for pleasure. And the next week, I started to feel some urge to connect with the people because, like you, I guess, I never really had a period of time longer than 2 weeks without concerts for the past 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
It never happened. Like it was at least 120 concerts a year every year. So it 2-3 weeks were very, very rare. So I felt the need to play for people, and so I started to do some live things like everyone else, like a bit on Instagram, a bit on Facebook, and then some media asked me to do some more, and so I did like about 3 and 4 of them. But at the same time, I was starting to. It's hard to explain. My relationship to the instrument and to music has taken some perspective. Like, let's talk just about the piano. I would always be practicing my piano, aiming at a concert or a recording or something.
With a goal, basically.
Yes, with a very concrete goal, concrete in what it has to be and when, Yeah. And I was also always, because as I'm also a composer, I was always composing because I had
commission, right? You were
commissions.
Like what I did when I asked you to compose for my
Exactly.
Unlimited,
Yeah. This is actually pretty recent for me. It's been only a few years. Before, I would only compose for myself and then play or record tunes when they were ready. But for the past 4 or 5 years, it's been a lot of commissions. So, and I had a few commissions coming, so everything has been canceled, of course. But so I started to think about it a little bit like I did when I was a teenager. When I was 15, 16 years old, I didn't have any concrete like I would just practice because I wanted to improve, and I would compose just because I had ideas and I felt the urge and the need to compose, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody asked me to compose anything. So since then it has been feeling a little bit like that, and I kind of love this. That's the part I love. Freedom I get in everything I do. So for example, at the piano, the only classical music I have been practicing since then is, it's not very original, but Bach.
Mm.
I've been practicing tunes that I was already playing for years, but trying to push them and, you know, to another level of understanding and of playing. And I have been also learning new ones, and I've been trying to learn music in a different way also, a little less with the eyes, a little less with the chart, a little more with the ears, like listening to several versions of, I don't know, the Second French Suite by Bach. And then when it's really well in my ear and in my brain, I would find the score and put it on my phone, and put the phone on the stand of the piano to learn it with tiny score, which doesn't allow me to really read all the notes, but just the shapes that they make, you know?
Ah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so I tried to find this connection between the shapes that I see on the chart and what I have in my memory, in my ear, from what I heard from versions by this or that pianist, and trying to learn the tunes more like that and less with, oh, this is a C sharp, this is a B flat, you know. So that's one thing. I also tried to change a few things about the way I learn, the way I memorize, about my technique, about things like that, but without any pressure, you know, just for the sake of it and pleasure of just like striking a key on the instrument and hearing the sound it makes, you know. And the other thing is about singing. I have always wanted to sing, but never really had time to properly learn. So I'm very lucky because my little brother Daniel is a great vocal like voice teacher, and so he has been giving me lessons on Zoom, just like now. And I'm practicing every day many different exercises and trying to learn songs, and also like focus on lyrics, what makes a great song, either in French or in English or in Spanish.
Wow, impressive.
And I don't really know what I'm going to do with that, but I'm really passionate about it. It's something I've always wanted to dive into, not just for my singing, but also for songwriting, you know. And yeah, like
So,
how can
it
you make
has
a
been,
story
yeah.
great within just a few sentences, you know?
So it
So
has been a very kind of busy and productive and musical confinement, right?
yeah, so this is not the busy part to me. This is the fun part. That's
So
fun.
what is the busy part? Tell us.
So the busy part is catching up with so many things that I was late for. You know, like there's this piano concerto that I wrote a few years back, and I recorded it, and the great the great publisher Durand has asked me to release it as a, you know, score that will be available for anyone, orchestras, pianists.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work to transcribe and write all the improvised parts
Of course.
that I usually improvise when I play the concerto. So that's a lot of work, and they have helped me with it, but it's not still complete. So I have to do that. And I have so many different things, like, you know what it is. People often think that our life is just sitting at the piano and playing and enjoying, but there's also a lot of administration and, you know, some paperwork and things that I'm trying to catch up. So that's the least fun part, but there's no deadline, there's no pressure, so
that's good.
yeah.
Was there anything like a small or a big discovery? Like, did this time allowed you to discover something about music or about yourself that you didn't know or you suspected, but never really had time to explore? Besides writing what you just said, writing in Spanish for songs or those things. But like, were there like a major event where you realized, oh my God, I missed that my whole life and I really want to do it and to in my life from now on?
No, there was no big like discovery, but there have been several things that I have been thinking about a lot, but never took time to dive into.
Mhm.
Um, like I don't know, like listening to many different kinds of music that I would not as much as I wanted to, because there's so much music around. There's not
Yeah,
just classical and jazz, but so many new records every week and so many new artists and the music world is so creative and there are many different.
what are you listening right now, for example? Give us an example.
So, for example, there's this very famous singer, songwriter, and producer James Blake from England that I already knew, but for the first time, actually, it was because of an Instagram live that he did with questions and answers about producing. So
Oh,
producing in the world of pop, it's
yeah.
not about producing with money, but it's like
Mm.
music producing. Because in French, producteur, it's a faux ami, so it doesn't mean the same thing. So, I'm trying to really listen more about the sound of a recording and a little less about just the music, the notes and the music itself, but the sound and the way the sound is produced. So that's something that I listen to more and more in recordings, because it's like with the lyrics in a song. I would never really pay attention to the lyrics in a song, just the music, and it's like a whole new world is opening to me because it full of meaning. Same for sound, same for form, same for structure in music. So it's like I have more time. I finally have time to explore and think without any pressure. It's a very important aspect of it. To
Absolutely.
things that have been somewhere in my consciousness about what is music, but that I never really, it was just like on the surface, and I'm trying to, yeah. So that it's not like a discovery, but it's a major thing for me.
It is big.
Hmm?
It is big because that's things that make a big difference in our lives.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, and I'm also taking time to go much further into one aspect of things that I have been also thinking a lot about. It's just going slower, slower in the way I learn, in the way I live, of course, because we have to now, but in the way I learn and in the way I practice, and also in the way I play. I just like finally. So yeah, one thing also is I brought with me here microphones, like actual like great microphones and sound system and things, so I'm able to record at the piano and record, piano, but any other thing if I want to sing something. But so I'm having a lot of fun recording myself in high quality, sound,
Yeah.
and listening back and try to just take more and more perspective on what I do than usual when I'm just like focusing on, the playing and the writing.
Yeah.
So
Are you composing right now? Are you working on a new piece? Did you get inspiration from this time, or are you mostly just reflecting and playing your instrument?
it depends on the days. So actually, right now, I'm working on a recording that I'm going to record in 2 weeks. So I'm very lucky because I have this project that was planned. We just had to postpone it a little bit, but it was already supposed to happen like in the spring. So it's with this incredible marimba and percussion player from Bulgaria, Vasilina Serafimova, whom I've been playing with
You have
for
been playing
10
with
years.
her for many years. You have many recordings with her, and
Yes, it's
you
more
are
than 10 years.
yeah, you're a fantastic duo together. It's incredible what you do.
Thanks. So we have this recording about the music of Bach, actually. So it's going to be Bach in many, like,
Many ways.
inspired by Bach mostly. And we've been working on it for more than 2 years. And it's finally happening. We're recording for Sony Music in 2 weeks. And we were supposed to have plenty of concerts to prepare the recording before that. And we can't. So what were we saying?
We were saying, good question. We were talking about your upcoming recordings, about Bach with Vasilina, and I was asking if you were composing at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm doing several different things. So first, I was lucky at the beginning of the lockdown because I was asked to compose music for a film.
Okay.
And it was great because, you know, it's it was a great opportunity to work and compose for a very nice film. So for several weeks, I composed and sent things, and well, I thought I was really lucky, but actually I was not so lucky because they chose someone else in the end. So I composed actually a lot of music, but for nothing. But it's never
But for you, and it's here, it's there.
Yeah, of course. It was just an opportunity to write music. But so this was part of the, you know, commissions that you get from outside. Yeah. So that was before all the relaxed composing. Since then, I've been writing a few notes here and there. You know, like there's this. You know, I have all my notebooks, and I write a few notes, and then I write a few things. I have all these pages, and I write words and notes and harmonic changes and.
Show me. Yeah. Huh? Cool.
And yeah, it's like, you know, some of them might never become a tune, and some of them might be
the next
played and
the next hit of the next century.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's super cool.
Yeah. But apart from that, yeah, no, I'm not like especially composing. I know that I have a few things that I will have to compose, including arrangements for other people's projects and you know, some pieces. But yeah.
Cool. A little more about the confinement. If you had to describe it with 1 or 2 or 3 words, but not sentences, just to pick one word that would express what you went through or what you feel right now. You have up to 3 words to describe this experience, because no one, I think, was ready, or not even ready, but just possibly thinking of going through something like that. It totally took us by surprise, and as you said, it was very shocking at first. So now, 2 months later, if you had 3 words to describe this whole thing, what would they be?
Quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Space, like mind space.
Mm-hmm.
And unknown.
Yeah, great.
For good and bad, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And so that part brings me to a little questionnaire de Proust, little Proust questionnaire for you now. So, are you ready?
I am. I must say I'm terrible with these things, so I hope I'm not too terrible.
That's why everybody's terrible. That's why it's funny, and it's great for us to hear.
I don't know. It's like every time I read in a magazine Proust questionnaire of someone, I'm always like, wow, their answers are so great. I would never be able to give such answers, and I will feel so stupid.
Yeah, but the thing is, now we're live and we are unprepared and we are spontaneous, so we have 1,000 excuses to say silly things.
Okay, cool.
So first, what is your current state of mind right now?
Happy. Does it have to be one word, or it can be a
No,
sentence?
again, one if you have only one, but it can be up to a few words, a short sentence. You know, I'm not rigid.
Okay, I'm feeling happy because the weather is beautiful and there are flowers everywhere, and I have a feeling of something that will eventually get better. So I'm okay.
Great. If you had to describe yourself, what would you pick as your most what your favorite trait of character, your most appreciate personality trait of yourself? Basically, what I'm asking is what you consider your biggest quality as a human being.
I would say it's curiosity. I always felt curious since I was a very little kid, and I think that's a great thing because
It is.
makes me want to, know everything and discover things, and also being curious about others without judging. That's something I learn more and more. So I think curiosity is something I have, and it can be aimed differently as you grow, for good or bad. But in my case, I think it's a good thing.
Wonderful. Same question, but with your worst. What do you think is your biggest bad quality or default, or something you don't like in yourself?
Give me a few seconds.
Yeah.
So I don't sound falsely modest. I I think I can be selfish. Um, Out of being in my world and not really seeing what's around, including people very close to me.
Mhm.
And these things, when you realize them, most of the time you have already hurt the other person's too much,
Mhm.
and I think it's hard, especially when you're really passionate about things, to see the world and people and their lives from outside of your own how can I say, like, goggles, so yeah, I don't know. I could tell you many about my default. How do you say default?
Bad quality.
But yeah,
No, but that's great. That's
yeah,
perfect.
some kind of selfishness.
Yeah. Do you have
And I have and I have a terrible memory. A terrible memory. I apologize if some people I know personally are watching this. I have a terrible memory, and it happened to me many times that I hurt people by not remembering a conversation we had, or something we said, or even not remembering the person themselves, even if we met like 4 times.
I'm Lise, by the way.
Hi, Liz. And it's something that really makes me suffer as much as people, just because, and I don't really know how to deal with that. I just kind of accept it now. But it's yeah, that's a very big that's a big one.
Okay.
And it's not out of not caring, actually. It's just
Yeah, I understand.
okay, cool. So
Do you have a favorite writer?
yes, I have a few.
So the top three.
I'd say Romain Gary. Um, maybe Stefan Zweig
Mm-hmm.
and Hermann Hesse. This sounds very, it sounded a little bit too intellectual, no?
I don't know, it talks to me and it makes me happy, so I don't know.
I don't know. The thing is, none of these writers I have read like all their books, you know.
Yeah, no.
I don't read enough to like read all the books of one writer. I prefer like discovering a few like best of or just one or two books of some writers, and it's like with music, like so many people tell you, oh, you should read this, you should read that, you should listen to this, you should see this film. So actually, you know, I kind of read one book by this guy and then another by this guy and by this guy, and before coming back to one writer I loved, it might be several years, you know. So these are three that I read several books of them and of them all.
If you had to pick one gift or one superpower, that what would it be?
A superpower, wow.
Or gift or something, yeah. Yeah, gift, superpower, go for anything you like.
I don't know, teleportation.
Yeah, okay, great.
You know, it would solve a lot of
Especially nowadays, right?
especially nowadays, and I always wanted to be everywhere at the same time and do everything. So it would solve that, and it would also solve the you know, some of the global warming problems, I guess. Yeah.
Your biggest musical embarrassment
That happened?
that happened in real life. Yeah. We all have a couple of them.
I don't know. Embarrassment. Like that happened, you mean musical, but like on stage? Like
Stage or during rehearsal, or, you know, let me give you one.
Yeah, tell me about yours.
That was pretty embarrassing. Chamber music rehearsal, Mozart quartets. There is two.
Yeah.
And basically, I started with the wrong one. Everybody went 1, 2, 3, and I had prepared the wrong piece.
That's bad.
That's pretty bad. So
Have you
that
seen
I will call.
Did you see this video of Maria Joao Pires
With the wrong Mozart concerto?
wrong concerto in front of it's like dress rehearsal?
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I call a musical embarrassment. So.
Well, a few years ago, I started to play classical concertos. So you do this all the time since you're, I don't know, a teenager, maybe even before that. But for me, as a jazz musician who's made most of his career in jazz until a few years ago, the first experiences with the orchestra were very frightening and also very fulfilling. But I had been preparing for more than 1 year these like 4 or 5 concertos that I had opportunities to play within a few months. And there was the 24th by Mozart, C minor. And so it was with Orchestre de Pau in the south of France. And we were playing 4 or 5 concerts in a row. And the first concert, so actually I was playing 3 concertos every night.
I remember that. It was nuts.
Yeah, that's exactly when, like, you called me just after this series for writing pieces for you. So it was nuts, but you know, I wanted to make the most of this time I had with the orchestra, and they allowed me to. So I had this, the Mozart 24th, then Rhapsody in Blue by Gershwin, and then my first piano concerto. It was a lot of work and a lot to have in the head for just one night. And the one that scared me the most was, of course, the Mozart. I had never played, you know, I had played sonatas or chamber music, but never a concerto. So all the rehearsals go really well, and I was so well prepared, you know, most of the pianists, they work maybe 2 months before a concerto, but for me it was like 1 year of, you know, learning this piece and then diving into it. And so I felt great about it. And then the first concert comes and it goes great, and my father is in the audience, and my stepmother and my grandmother and all the family came from Paris. It's far, you know. And then second concert the next day, and in the middle of the first movement, I kind of, how can I describe that? I mean, you know perfectly what I'm talking about, but I kind of like miss a step, like going down the stairs, you know. In some phrase like, I don't know, something.
Yeah, I think I can tell.
I don't know, there's like this one passage in the middle of it that, oh, I can't remember which one, but anyway. And my feeling is like, I'm like falling in the stairs, and so I start to, and it's in a passage of a few bars where the orchestra is not playing. So
Of course,
of course, it's when you're all alone and
Yeah, of course.
you're not covered by anything. So I feel my heart go like, I don't know, here or in my feet, I don't know. Scared as hell, I'm starting to sort of very awkwardly improvise a few notes instead of what, you know. But one would think that as a jazz musician, it's easy to improvise instead of playing what's written when you make a mistake. But it's not. It's not. It's super hard, because it's really like two different parts of the brain. It's like switching the lights off or on, or being in another room in your head, like when you improvise or when you play written music.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure.
switching from one to another without wanting it, like because you're taken by surprise, is actually really, really, really fucking hard. So I kind of got on my feet after a few bars, but then the conductor was looking at me like, where should I enter? And he was entering with a tutti, with the whole orchestra, like, no, 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 and he didn't know where to go. And he was a hero. He managed to kind of get the orchestra together. and after everything, I was like, ah, oh. And it kind of spoiled for me the whole concerto, like even
Of
second
course,
movement,
always.
what happened. And when and then I thought, oh, maybe I will listen back to the recording, and it's maybe not so bad. I wasn't the only one to notice it. And no, I listened, and it was really terrible. And my dad came after, and he said that himself was so scared when this happened, you know.
But that's the most terrible part, is like, if you have family in the audience, they are the one dying, even maybe more.
They're terrified. Yeah,
they're terrified. I remember a couple times my mom was in the audience, and I had, not a couple times, but you know, it happened, some incidents like that, and I could tell after she was petrified and like losing it. So
yeah. And you know, this made me remember. It made me remember one thing that my great grandmother used to say. So her name was Gisèle Casadessus. She's very well known in France. She passed away 2.5 years ago at the age of 103. And until not long before that, she was still playing, performing on stage. She was an actress, stage actress at Comédie Française. And she once told me, because I was doing this show with my family, Le Jazz et la Diva, and she told us, be careful about not the premiere, not the first night, but the second one.
Oh, the second is the worst, always.
Yeah, and that happened to me on the second night. The first was perfect, you know,
Yeah.
and then third and fourth, and the others were okay, but the second, yeah. So then I remembered, I should have listened to her and practiced even more for the second, you know. Anyway.
Great, that's a good one. Do you have words or phrases that you overuse?
When I
Like,
speak?
yeah, when you speak, like people would say, you know, in French at the moment, you hear everybody says du coup. There is du coup everywhere. It drives me nuts personally, but that kind of thing. Or in English, there is the people who are like, well, you see, or you know,
anyway.
so anyway. So is there one thing that you think you are aware you are saying a lot?
Yeah, so in French there are a couple. There is en fait. I use a lot en fait.
Okay.
So actually today I was thinking about trying to use en vérité, en réalité instead, you know, en fait. And there is one that really drives me nuts because people overuse it all the time, and I do too, is en termes de.
En termes de, yeah.
Which is not French. It's something that comes from in terms of, which is English. And it's my friend Jean-François Zigel, who is very aware of you know, like keeping the French language rich and lively, and he woke me up with en termes de. So now when I hear, or when I'm about to say oui, c'est bien en termes de qualité, or is it, you know, I'm like, no. So that's a.
Two more to go. What would you consider being your biggest extravaganza? The craziest thing you've done in your entire life?
I don't think I'm a very extravagant guy. I mean, the things, I guess they would be either music related, like, okay, I'm a jazz pianist, I've played jazz all my life, and I'm going to fucking play a classical concerto.
Because I was so ballsy. I mean, I was there when you played at the Philharmonie in Paris, and I was like, wow, that was
the Ravel one.
Yeah.
Yes, you were there. Thank you.
Yeah. So this, but I was mostly talking about, you know, generally speaking, like.
So generally speaking, no, but so no, I was talking about it because generally speaking, the extravagant things that I will do are things that require some kind of, like, putting myself in some kind of danger, you know. So it will be something like that, even if you know, something that's related to some kind of danger and some kind of achievement that is maybe unusual, at least for me. Like, so I'm very fond of windsurfing. I've been windsurfing all my life. I've been lucky enough to be able to do it a lot and go at the seaside, and you know. And one day I was coming back from a tour and I was tired and blah, blah, blah. And the wind, I was here in Ile de Ré, and the wind was blowing. It was really good, and I decided to go windsurfing. And after an hour on the windsurf board, I thought, oh, the wind is really great. Let's go to France. So I windsurfed all the way to the French coast, which is kind of a long way, and back. But actually, when I came back, it was already almost like dusk, and the wind was dropping. And I thought, oh, this was a bad idea, because if the wind drops and I'm in the middle between France and the island, I will never go back to the island. And then what can I do?
Wow.
And finally, I was lucky enough that the wind didn't drop right now, but just a little bit later. And when I arrived, my father was with a jumelle. How do you say that?
Binoculars?
Binoculars. And
I don't know.
he said, "You're such a little con," you know. So things like that, you know. Or last year I went with my great friend Dan Tepfer, incredible jazz pianist, and he's a great mountaineer too. And I had never really done mountaineer, because he took me up the Mont Blanc. It was early June, so a bit before it was actually open with all the, you know, lifts and all. And it was 2 days of, you know, like going up more than 4,000 meters height without being prepared and all. And so these kind of things that kind of, where I kind of push myself to my boundaries, but you know, nothing funny. I'm sorry.
It's pretty good extravaganza. But thinking about just before the conclusion of that interview, that talk, what you were saying really rings a bell and echoes in me. Do you think, because many of my friends of musicians I have met talk about that needs to go each time a little bit further or closer to the limit of our boundaries. Do you think it's related to being an artist or to being a musician, that we always constantly need to push a little more, and again, a little more, to see where we can go, and that the result is like in our life, it's the same. we always need that extra push or that extra adrenaline, maybe?
I don't know. I'm not sure it's related to being an artist, because I know many people who have that urge in them and they are not artists, and I also know artists who don't really have that. So I think it's more it's maybe even more profound than that. It's to me it goes with that sense of fear, like overcoming fear, which is such a great achievement every time you do it. Whatever fear it is, it could be, you know, just like swim where further than the shallow water for people who are afraid of that. Like last year, my little sister, for the first time in her life, in front of us, she started to actually swim where she didn't where she couldn't stand on the ground, you know, because the water was deep, and she had been scared of that all her life. And it was so moving to see that she was fighting to overcome the fear and eventually tame that fear, you know. So it can be something as simple as that, or go mountaineering, or I don't know, if you're afraid of dogs and finally overcoming that, or being able to learn that super hard piece or concerto and play it in front of an audience and sharing it in front of people and putting your ego a little bit on the side, you know. That's also it could be many things, but it has to do with like getting out of your comfort zone,
That's
which
the
is
main point, I think.
Hmm?
I think it's the main point when you
Yeah,
finally go out of where you used to be,
and it's
swimming
such a great
in
feeling,
strange waters.
and it's always hard,
Yeah,
but it's such a great feeling.
it is.
So yeah, to me it's more about that. Like it's yeah, can I climb that tree a little bit higher, you know, when you're a kid? So and that, to me, it gives you an like a direct experience with life that's very real and very earthy in a way, you know. Just like, yeah, just like when you try to climb the tree higher when you're a kid, and if you fall, you enjoy yourself, and then you know how it feels like, and eventually you recover. And if you're afraid, then you will overcome that fear, and
You will go back, always go back.
yeah. So this is, I think, yeah, it's really a matter of personality. That's something I got from my parents, like, definitely.
And so my last question to you is, do you have a motto? And if you have one, what is it? And now because you're laughing like that, there is no escape.
No, it's just because I'm thinking about a moto. Like in French, a moto is a motorbike. So
Yeah.
I don't have a motorbike.
Do you have a devise? Est-ce que tu as une devise?
Um, yes, actually, I have.
Tell us.
I never said that to anyone. Should I?
I would be honored.
You're going to be disappointed because it's very simple. It's so
Okay.
simple. It is tout va bien.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Tout va bien. So in English, it's everything is all right.
It's all fine. Yeah.
It's all fine. And that's something I have been telling myself a lot for many years. And it dates back from the first times I tried to do some meditation. So I read a lot about that, and people told me a lot about that, different people. And I understood that you can try to find some void in yourself, or you can try to get a picture in your mind, like, I don't know, starry night, you know, or something like that. Or you could also have a motto, you know. For some people, it might be something related to God, you know, to religion, to anything. And for me, it was like the first thing that popped to my mind, and I kind of loved that instantly, was thinking, tout va bien, like, it's all fine, everything is okay. Like, no matter what happens,
It's okay.
it's okay. It's what's supposed to be. It's life. It, you know, the good thing, the bad thing is like, it's like the seasons, summer, winter, like hardships and joys. So it's all good. And this has truly helped me go through many things, good and bad, you know. So this one and a second one, if you allow me, that I have from my father is à quoi bon. This one is, so the first one I use all the time. The à quoi bon is many times, not all the time, but how would you
How would you translate that in English? So what's
Yeah.
for? What's for? Or
What's the point? What's the point?
What's the point? Yeah.
So this one I use for only for hardships, or for sometimes when I think like, should I really go into that fight? You know, for anything. Like, is it worth it?
Is it worth
Is
it?
it worth the hard feelings? Is it worth the time? Because we all have a limited time on this planet, you know. And this also helps me a lot. Like, à quoi bon? Like, you're going to go into that, you know, bad feelings or fight or whatever, and is it really worth it? And actually, I found that most of the time it's not worth it.
Sure.
And then
I
the
think
second
if
one that
you-
comes after that is, tout va bien, it's all good.
If you are asking the question, it might already be the sign that it's not worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Then it's all good.
So, tout va bien.
Tout va
So,
bien.
on those beautiful words, tout va bien, everything's great. I would like to thank you very much, Thomas, for this interview, this talk with me. It was a great
Merci,
pleasure.
Lise.
Merci, Thomas. Ça m'a fait super plaisir.
Moi aussi.
And I hope we'll meet again in real life pretty soon.
Yeah, in a few weeks maybe.
Yeah.
And are you going live today? Are you playing the piano today?
No, tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay. So I
7
will,
p.m.
7 p.m. Paris time.
Yes.
Okay, so everyone go to Lise de la Salle official page, Facebook page tomorrow, 7 p.m. to look and hear her play piano.
Thank you. So be happy and enjoy Ile de Ré.
Yeah,
When are
for
you coming back to Paris?
in a week to rehearse and record this album. I'm telling you.
Break a leg with your recording.
Yeah.
Bonne chance, as we say in French. Merde. Et à très vite.
À très vite.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bye, everyone.
Bye.